Joining me right now to discuss all of this is former U.S. Secret Service Special Agent Melanie Burkholder. Thank you so much, Melanie, for being here. I'm just going to ask what a lot of Americans have thought since this happened. Should there be an investigation with full transparency as to whether this could have been an inside job?
Oh, wow, that is an interesting theory. We can't rule out anything at this point. I think that's the reason that we have these investigations, to get to the bottom of it. I will say that I agree with the acting director in that, we don't need to rush to fire people. We need to be constructive and do a full investigation and understand who needs to be held accountable. Obviously, he did accept the responsibility. It is the Secret Service's responsibility, and that was made clear. However, how did we get to that point? That's the question that has to be answered. And I hope through the investigation that question is answered. I'd love these Monday morning quarterback people who decide that who have never had the responsibility of protecting a president and the experience the complexity of actually carrying out a protective mission, that want to rush to judgment and have heads roll. Well, they don't even know what would be the benefit of that yet. We have to find out who should be responsible and held responsible because of this shooting that happened July 13th.
Well, I think a lot of people are, now that we've had weeks to process it, are thinking, yeah, there are so many complexities to make sure that people are in position, that things are in place. You can't just make a snap judgment when you're covering an American president. And yet, the biggest question that I keep asking here on NewsNation, and others do as well, is if someone is on a roof, whether or not they have a gun, shouldn't the U.S. Secret Service stand down and keep someone who is highly vulnerable off of a stage at that particular point?
Yeah, and I think to your point, there were opportunities to amend or adjust the security operation that day, and the communications completely failed. If there had been appropriate communications in place, that would have happened, in my opinion. And post 9/11. The federal government spent buku's money to fix the communication between agencies and organizations. So I don't myself understand why the command post or the command center was not operational to the point where they could get the information and push it out as necessary to protect the president from getting on the stage in the first place. That's what should have happened that day. And I still want answers to that question. How did the communications fail to the point where we had a former president that was shot?
Well, and again, an innocent rally goer killed, murdered by an assassin on a roof, and then two people who just were released from the hospital as a result of all this. I want to play another heated exchange over whether the Secret Service is treating the former president differently from the current president. Let's watch.
Is it your testimony that in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump had the same number of agents protecting him that Joe Biden has at a comparable event?
I'm telling you the shift, the close protection shift surrounding.
That's
what you asked me, Senator, and I'm trying to answer it.
You are not answering it. Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2x, 3x, 5x,
National
10x?
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike, sir.
I'm not asking
other assets
how many more
travel
agents
with the president that the former president will not get.
And, historically, it makes sense, I would think, from somebody who was processing this, that somebody who was sitting president would have more security than anybody else. But what is your take? Could that have been handled better by the agency?
Yeah, so the security is commensurate with the threat, right? So depending on what the threat level is against the protectee, the numbers change. And quite frankly, we're called the Secret Service because there's some things that we don't divulge. I mean, would you want the bad guys to know how many agents that you had to take out that were in the perimeter of the president? I don't think that's good information to give out. However, I think the acting director could have explained that a little bit instead of being combative the way he was. Because yes, there are certain agents around the president. That's considered his detail. That's not a typical post-stander, right? Those are different types of people. They're agents, of course, but their roles are very different during a protective event. So I think there could have been a little bit easier way to explain that instead of being combative.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.